If a narcissist ever says you're imagining things, pause for a second because they're not trying to understand you. They're trying to rewrite reality. Most people already know narcissists lie, manipulate, blame shift, and play the victim when they start losing control. But this video goes deeper than that. I want to show you the hidden reason narcissists fake everything before the mask slips. The fake kindness, fake confidence, fake apologies, and even fake love. Once you understand why they do it, you stop taking their behavior personally, and that changes everything. I spent the last 20 years researching narcissistic behavior, self-worth, and emotional manipulation as a coach, author, and survivor myself. And in this video, I'll show you the 3 reasons narcissists fake everything and the 1 mindset shift that protects you from all of it. Imagine walking into a luxury store where everything looks expensive and perfect, but behind the walls, the building is falling apart. That's narcissism. A narcissist builds a fake image the same way a movie set builds a fake city. From the outside, it looks real, but up close, it's hollow. Narcissists don't fake things for fun, they fake things for survival. Their fake confidence hides deep insecurity, their fake charm hides selfish motives, and their fake love hides emotional emptiness. The scary part is that most people don't notice at first because narcissists study people carefully. They mirror your personality, your humor, your values, and your dreams. They become exactly who you wanted them to be. That's the setup. If you're empathetic, loyal, or emotionally open, you naturally trust what feels familiar, but the version of them you fell in love with was performance, not authenticity. That's why everything feels confusing later. The sweet person suddenly becomes cold. The supportive partner becomes critical, and the caring friend becomes cruel. You keep wondering which version was real, but the painful truth is that the fake version was designed to hook you, while the cruel version appears once they feel secure in control. That's also why narcissists fake apologies. They don't apologize to heal the relationship, they apologize to stop consequences. Watch carefully after a narcissist says sorry. Do they actually change or do they repeat the same behavior again and again? Real remorse creates change, but fake remorse creates another cycle. Narcissists also fake vulnerability for the same reason. Sometimes they suddenly open up emotionally, tell painful stories, cry, or act broken. And while parts of it may be true, the goal often isn't connection, it's control through sympathy. If you feel responsible for healing them, you'll tolerate behavior you should have walked away from. That's the trap. Many narcissists know exactly what they're doing because without the mask, they would have to face shame, insecurity, and emptiness they've spent their whole lives running from. So they fake strength, innocence, love, success, and even change just to avoid accountability. Another reason narcissists fake everything is because image matters more to them than truth. Healthy people care about honesty, but narcissists care about appearance. That's why they can treat you horribly in private while still looking charming, generous, or spiritual in public. To them, reputation is everything. They don't build genuine character, they build characters. Different masks for different people. One mask for friends, one for family, one for social media, and one for you. The moment one mask stops working, they switch to another. That's why confronting them feels impossible because you're arguing with someone who changes identities to avoid accountability. One moment they're innocent, the next they're the victim, and then suddenly they're the hero again. If none of that works, they make you the villain because protecting the image matters more than protecting the relationship. That's also why narcissists fake happiness. They constantly need to look successful through perfect selfies, perfect relationship posts, and perfect stories about their lives. But behind closed doors, there's anger, emptiness, emotional chaos, and constant drama. Narcissistic validation works like a drug because they need compliments, attention, and admiration constantly. When they stop receiving it, the mask starts cracking. And that's usually when the manipulation gets worse through more guilt trips, more lies, more blame, and more emotional games. Deep down, narcissists are terrified of exposure, not exposure to other people, but exposure to themselves. Many survivors get stuck trying to prove the narcissist is fake, but narcissists rarely change because they got exposed. They usually just find a new audience. Healing isn't about unmasking them to the world, it's about unmasking them in your own mind. The moment you stop idealizing them, their control weakens. You stop explaining yourself endlessly, stop chasing closure, and stop trying to earn basic respect. Slowly, you begin trusting your own reality again because narcissistic abuse creates confusion for one reason. Confused people are easier to control, but clarity changes the game. You realize love shouldn't feel like emotional exhaustion. Respect shouldn't feel conditional, and healthy relationships don't require you to abandon yourself just to keep the peace. The final reason narcissists fake everything is because control is easier for them than genuine connection. Real connection requires honesty, vulnerability, empathy, and accountability. But narcissists struggle with all four. Instead of building deep relationships, they build emotional control systems. That's why the relationship feels intense at first. The compliments feel addictive, the attention overwhelming, and the connection almost too perfect. Healthy love grows slowly, but narcissistic attachment moves fast because it's designed to create dependency. They study your loneliness, insecurities, needs, and dreams, then become the answer to all of them, not because they truly see you, but because they know if they become emotionally essential, you'll stay longer when the manipulation begins. That's why narcissists mirror you in the beginning. If you love deep conversations, suddenly they do too. If you value loyalty, they claim they've never met someone like you. If you dream about a peaceful future, so do they. It feels magical at first, but over time the mask slips. Suddenly you feel anxious instead of safe, careful instead of comfortable, and drained instead of loved. You start overthinking every conversation, wondering if you said something wrong or why they suddenly became distant. That confusion is not accidental because unstable people seek approval harder. Once you're emotionally exhausted, you become easier to manipulate. Narcissists alternate between affection and cruelty to keep you emotionally chasing the good version of them. One day they praise you, the next day they criticize you. One moment they pull you close, the next they act cold and distant. It keeps you addicted to the hope that the loving version will return. But the truth most survivors eventually realize is that the good version was part of the manipulation too. Not always completely fake, but strategically amplified to keep you attached. That realization hurts because you weren't just grieving the relationship, you were grieving the illusion, the future you imagined, and the person you hoped they were. Healing begins the moment you stop confusing potential with reality. Don't listen only to their words, watch their patterns. Real love brings peace while manipulation brings confusion. Real love respects boundaries while manipulation punishes them. Real love feels safe while manipulation feels unpredictable. Once you stop chasing emotional breadcrumbs, you start rebuilding your self-worth. You stop shrinking yourself to avoid conflict. Stop begging for basic kindness and stop explaining pain to someone who benefits from misunderstanding you. That's when your power comes back, not because the narcissist changed, but because you finally did. You stopped feeding the illusion, and without your attention, emotional energy, and constant self-doubt, the mask no longer has power over you. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you understand narcissistic manipulation more clearly, subscribe for more videos about emotional healing, toxic relationships, and rebuilding self-worth. And remember this, the moment you stop chasing who they pretended to be, you finally become free from who they really are, continuing from where it left off. And once you see this pattern clearly, something important starts to shift inside you. You stop reacting emotionally to every new version of them. Because you finally understand there isn't a stable, real version waiting to come back. There is only behavior that changes based on what gets them control, attention, or emotional supply in the moment. That's where most people begin breaking the cycle, not by fighting harder, but by seeing more clearly. But here's what usually happens next after that realization. Even when you know it's manipulation, you still feel pulled back in, not because you're confused anymore, but because your nervous system has been trained. This is what people call a trauma bond, a cycle where your brain starts associating emotional highs and lows with attachment. The kindness feels like relief, and the cruelty feels like withdrawal. So instead of walking away cleanly, you start craving the good phase like it's proof the relationship can still be saved. And that's exactly what keeps the loop alive. Narcissistic dynamics don't just operate through words. They operate through conditioning. Intermittent reinforcement is powerful. Unpredictable rewards create stronger attachment than consistent ones. So when affection comes randomly after coldness, your brain starts working harder to earn it back. You don't just miss the person. You miss the version of yourself that felt chosen, valued, or special in the beginning. That's why healing feels disorienting at first. Because you're not only detaching from them, you're detaching from the emotional fantasy your mind built to survive the inconsistency. And this is the turning point most people don't expect. You stop asking, why are they doing this to me? And start asking, why am I staying in something that makes me lose myself? That question changes everything, because now the focus shifts from understanding their behavior to protecting your own reality. And protecting your reality starts very quietly. You stop over-explaining yourself to people who twist your words. You stop revisiting conversations trying to decode hidden meanings. You stop treating inconsistency like something you need to fix. And most importantly, you stop negotiating for basic respect. At first, this feels uncomfortable because if you've been in that cycle long enough, calm starts to feel unfamiliar. Silence feels like distance, and peace feels like something is missing. But that discomfort is not a sign you're making a mistake. It's a sign your nervous system is recalibrating, because chaos trains you to expect intensity. And stability feels wrong until your body learns safety again. And then something subtle but powerful begins to happen. You start noticing patterns instead of promises. You stop analyzing words and start observing consistency. You stop asking for closure from people who benefit from confusion, and slowly the emotional grip weakens, not all at once, but piece by piece. This is also where many people finally see the truth clearly. Narcissistic behavior doesn't need your participation to continue. It only needs your attention, your emotional reactions, and your hope that this time it will be different. When those three things start disappearing, the dynamic collapses on its own, not dramatically, just quietly, because control doesn't survive clarity for long. And eventually, you reach a point where you no longer feel the need to win the argument, expose the mask, or prove what they are. That version of you was trying to survive the confusion. Now you're building something different. Distance without guilt, clarity without obsession, peace without permission. And that's the real shift, because healing isn't when you finally understand them perfectly. It's when you no longer need to. And that's where real freedom begins. Not when they change, not when they apologize properly, not when they finally understand what they did, but when you stop waiting for any of that. Because the final stage of healing is not anger, it's indifference, not coldness toward life, but clarity about what no longer deserves access to you. You stop revisiting the past to find answers that were never meant to bring peace. You stop replaying conversations, hoping you'll finally say the perfect thing that makes them see your value. And you stop confusing emotional intensity with emotional truth. Because what once felt like love was often just attachment built on unpredictability. And what once felt like connection was often just your empathy trying to fix what was never yours to fix. And here's the truth that changes everything. You were never meant to earn basic respect. You were never meant to decode someone to feel safe. You were never meant to shrink yourself just to be chosen. The right connection doesn't require that. So now, instead of chasing clarity from them, you choose clarity within yourself. You learn to recognize patterns faster than apologies. You trust consistency more than charm. And you believe actions more than promises. And slowly, your life starts to feel different, quieter, lighter, steadier, not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer participating in what breaks you. And that's the real ending of this cycle. Not revenge, not explanation, not closure from them, just you, returning to yourself, stronger in your boundaries, clearer in your mind, and finally done with anything that asks you to abandon yourself in order to be loved. Because the moment you stop chasing who they pretended to be, you finally become free from who they really are.